Welcome to Brave Words, true stories told well. I'm Rob Carlton.
And I'm Adrienne Ferreira. Our storyteller this week is Linda Atkins. Linda is a medical practitioner and writer who was raised in Western Sydney, where she continues to live and work. Linda's work has been featured in the Calibre Essay Prize, the Olga Masters Prize. She's been in the Grieve anthology, as well as a few other anthologies, including ADAS, Stringy Bark, Persephone Literary Journal, Kill Your Darlings. She's been published in all sorts of places, and excitingly, her debut novel, What We Left Behind, is coming out this year.
And she's a medical doctor, right?
Oh, yeah.
A medical doctor.
Yeah, you can't stop her. She is very, very productive.
This story was recorded live at the Funhouse Factory in Gosford, and it's called Two Caesars.
In the late 1990s, Nepean Hospital consisted of a cluster of 50s buildings huddled together in a rectangle on a flattened block of land in Penrith with few redeeming features. The acreage was bordered by the Western Railway lines and the Northern Road on two sides, a small street of shops, a brothel and Housing Commission fibros on the other two. The first ridge of the Blue Mountains loomed above to the west, and the brown Nepean River ambled greasily along at the base of the foothills. The land was punched and hot, boiling in summer and freezing in winter, and the weather always seemed to be brassy. Panthers Club, newly built, squatted in a twinkling hectare of parking a kilometre to the west. There was a huge step up in responsibility from senior obstetric resident to registrar. I had spent 6 months learning to tie surgical knots and perform a few of the more basic surgeries, and I'd performed about 10 caesarean sections already, heavily supervised, but no first-year registrar was within shouting distance of competence. Nonetheless, on the Friday of my very first week, I entered labour ward, rostered for my first 24-hour shift of formally being a registrar. As I shakily pushed open the heavy wooden doors to delivery, promptly at 8 in the morning, I began to wonder if this decision and this specialty were the right ones. Here I was, in charge, petrified and underqualified. It was all I could do not to panic and run right back out. At handover, I was given the care of a woman with ruptured membranes, labouring with a breech baby and booked for caesarean section within the hour. I would be performing her operation under the supervision of the junior consultant. She was pouring thick meconium from her vagina almost continuously, but in breech presentation, the first part of the fetus to present to the world is the arsehole. It was a metaphor for obstetric life, I thought. A CTG fetal heart monitor was strapped to her belly as she thrashed and groaned. "When's the surgery, Doc?" she gasped, sweating thinly between contractions. She was being cared for by a very junior student midwife, and I could see that the electronic fetal heart rate trace was only registering dots, widely scattered on the paper. Uninterpretable, I thought. So I screwed a small electrode via her vagina into the fetal butt cheek. "Hook that up to the machine," I told the student. "Let's get a decent trace while we're waiting for theatres." A resuscitation emergency delayed the theatre team, but by 9:30, and under the keen eyes of the consultant, the surgery began. It was all very routine, entering the peritoneal cavity, uterus straining pinkly beneath, followed by a nick in that muscular organ, and then the insertion of both index fingers into the gap. I stretched the uterus open until it gaped like an open mouth, with a fetal thigh flexure visible within. I slipped my fingers into the flexures and twisted the baby out like a corkscrew in a standard breech technique. I felt happy enough. But with the delivery of the baby, the mood shifted abruptly. There was no first cry, and the baby seemed floppy, like a loose bag of marbles, flaccid and deathly pale. Frowning, I handed the baby to the midwife's waiting outstretched hands, and there was a huddle of activity around the neonatal trolley, the NICU team and the anaesthetist joining the flurry as a serious resuscitation began to happen. The mother called out anxiously from between the drapes, Is she okay? Is my baby okay? Her voice was high and shrill, but nobody answered. The consultant teaching me tapped my fingers with the surgical forceps. Concentrate. Your job is here, not there. If I turned my head even a little, I could see the CPR, the drawing up of adrenaline, the stressed faces, the commands. I stitched carefully as my heart crumpled. The infant was stillborn. They never got a heartbeat happening. The dead baby girl was given to her mother to hold in recovery, wrapped in a little pink quilt made by volunteers, a tiny, sad souvenir. I was still rostered on for 24 hours, and 24 hours I worked, dull-eyed and shocked. On Monday morning, I was ushered into the office of the department head, Brian Sparrett. He was a hugely tall, tender, artful man, clever and calm and kind. He had the medical record folder on his desk as he ushered me to sit. My face was still reddened and puffy from a weekend spent crying. His hair, grey and wavy, his dark green, black-lashed eyes gazing at me without censure. "I've looked at the file," he began gently. "Do you understand where you went wrong?" I nodded, completely unable to speak. "Don't blame yourself solely for this. Bad outcomes are usually system failures, cascades of little things which add up to make an end result. Let's look at all the ways in which this case went wrong. She couldn't have an immediate caesarean. That's not your fault. She was monitored by a student midwife. You put an electrode on, correctly, but the student didn't know how to connect it to the machine. The senior midwife assumed the junior midwife was competent in CTGs and failed to check the trace. You should have popped in when the caesarean was postponed, but you didn't yet know any of the staff. Can you see? Lots of things, not just you." But I was so bereft. My confidence had been destroyed, but that didn't bring the baby back. I wanted to quit, but I couldn't leave the hospital uncovered. 2 years later, I was in third year on a routine Saturday shift when a patient of Brian's arrived in delivery suite. She was only 29 weeks pregnant. The lady belonged to a strange religious group and a speech with me was prescribed. Could I call her doctor, please? "Yes, I will," I encouraged her gently as we strapped a fetal monitor to her belly while her husband shifted the car. The first 3 minutes of the CTG trace were terrible. And then right in front of my horrified eyes, she groaned with a sudden cramp, passed a small gush of blood, and the fetal heart rate began to fall, so low until it was barely beating at all. The heart rate climbed again slowly, but my own heart was in my mouth. The fetus was critically ill, and it was 11 weeks early. Decision time. "It's a placental abruption," I told the nurse. "Crash Caesar." Placental abruption is a premature separation of the placenta from the wall of the uterus. Not just the fetus is at risk, the mother will bleed too. Her own blood will use up all of its clotting factors and will eventually cease to clot at all. It then becomes a battle between the competency of the ICU staff and the danger of the condition. I phoned Brian, my hands shaking. "How far away are you?" I asked. "Only 25 minutes, he replied. "Don't anaesthetise her without me." "She won't wait, Brian." There was a pause. "Okay, get started then. But that baby had better not be out and screaming its lungs out when I arrive. It would want to be at death's door." He didn't really mean this. He was sending a message. I trust you, but you need to be correct in your assessment. That was a frightening thing. Theatre's called. "Is it genuinely a Cat 1? Really? Because the orthopods are not going to be happy with you if it isn't." "Yes, Cat 1. There was the most minute of pauses. The theatre staff loved their kids too. "Call neonatal," they said. "Porter on the way now." Neonatal were not thrilled. They were 2 cots over their staffing capabilities as it was. "Heard and understood," I responded, without apology. The trolley was flying out the room as the husband arrived from the car park. "Where are we going? Where is Dr. Sparrett? Are you sure you're doing the right thing?" I reassured him briefly, showed him the trace, and there was abject and utter terror on his face. save my baby. And if you can't, save my wife. There's no operating theatre, flurry, like that of a crash Caesar. The patient is not yet even on the table. The scrub and scout nurses are counting swabs aloud frantically, equipment plunking clumsily onto the sterile trolleys in a disorderly pile. The wardsman arrives with a bang, and the patient is transferred onto the bed via a slide board, usually trembling and wide-eyed in terror. Fasted? The anaesthetist asked. I shook my head. She ate lunch an hour ago. Tracheal protection then. He tilted his head sideways at me. I'll start when you scrubbed. The midwife had a portable fetal heart rate monitor on the patient's rounded belly, and she called out 40, falling. Hurry up, Linda, as I raced off to scrub. There's no place for elegance in a crash Caesar. We went as fast as possible. Another breach, and as I opened the uterus, there was a rush of meconium and dark clotted maternal blood. The baby was flat, floppy, tiny, and very pale. I heard the terse instructions and my heart died inside me. But then the tiniest of mewling cries, like a newborn kitten, rapidly silenced as they changed from mask and bagging to intubation and ventilation. He was alive, and it was at this stage that Brian burst in. He raced to the resuscitation trolley where the intubated newborn lay, scrawny, bright pink and glistening. He asked me, "Was there an abruption?" And I nodded. "Baby looks okay. Couldn't you have waited for me?" I was not such a narcissist that I could confidently retort that I did the right thing. I idolised Brian, and it pained me to think that I might have sacrificed his good opinion. He scrubbed, and we closed her up in silence. "Walk with me," he said afterwards. "Let's go see Bub." He wanted a briefing from the neonatologist as to whether I had acted correctly, and I knew that this time my entire career was on the line. At NICU, the baby had already been extubated and was grimacing and twitching, clearly uncomfortable and unhappy. "How did the bub come out?" Brian asked the neonatologist, who shrugged. "Bit flat," she said, "but he is a 29-weeker. He looks all right now." "And the cord gases?" Brian asked. The neonatologist wordlessly passed out over the slender printout. This would be the kicker. Normal pH in an adult is 7.4. In term labour, we would accept anything from a fetus over 7.2. If the pH was less than 7.1, there was a severe threat to life and instant delivery would be recommended. The cord pH in this instance was 6.95, almost incompatible with life. "Good save," the neonatologist said blandly. "Any chance of hypoxic brain injury?" Brian asked. "Hard to say, probably not. Bub came good quickly, seems okay now. Rapid down and rapid up is always better than slow in either direction. If we get through the first couple of days without a problem, I would say we're looking reasonable. Can't make promises, of course." Unexpectedly, Brian put a heavy arm around my shoulder. "Well done. That was a ballsy call and completely correct. Proud of you." The stunned husband was ushered in. His wife was still semi-conscious in recovery, being monitored and transfused. Brian told the husband, "Meet Dr. Atkins. She just saved the lives of both your wife and your baby. Watch out, she's leaking." All a bit stressful. Thank you.
If ever a story said, "keep going," it's that one. I mean, the devastation she must have felt after that first episode, and that sense of responsibility and, you know, gosh, what did I do wrong? And she said she wanted to leave, but she couldn't because she had this sense of service to the hospital, and then on she went. An extraordinary story.
And how important it is to have a kind and encouraging mentor who also is
tough love, clear.
Yeah, like unflinching and in that sense of needing to learn, like how much learning is going on in that story. The intensity of that journey to become a a medical professional. It's really extraordinary. And I know, there are so many medical dramas on television and we think we know what it might be like, but to have Linda, who's been through that whole experience, be able to, in this really incredibly literary way, share what it is to be in her skin under that pressure. And I just thought it was just extraordinary, an extraordinary story.
Yeah, and again, a great example of literary and clinical.
Yeah.
So clear, so matter of fact and very funny too. I mean, there's sort of, the coming out asshole first, what a great metaphor for obstetrics. And so it really communicates a point. And again, that relationship with her mentor, I'm really interested in those conversations. I think often in the modern world, maybe this is a bugbear of mine, where people are held to account. They feel like they're being judged or come under attack. Now, Linda was being held to account. And that first reflection on that experience is hard to hear. You've done this. It's not all your fault. At that point, don't you just want the person to say it's not your fault at all?
But the cascading small events. Yeah.
But if he'd said there's not your fault at all, then there's every chance that, many, many babies in the future might not have made it because she wasn't held to account and she wasn't asked to look at her role in that systemic failure. And then the bravery to continue and then the bravery to share this story.
I know. She's amazing, Linda, and it's so exciting that she's got her novel coming out. There's also another story of hers on the podcast, Richard, which is a really different kind of story. Really, maybe one of my favourites, I think.
Yeah.
One of my Brave Words favourites.
What's her novel called?
What We Left Behind.
Yeah. So if you like that little story from Linda, it'd be a fun one to read. It's not often you get to, read a whole novel from someone that you've met, in a sneaky little space like this.
Yeah. Check that out and please share this story if it's something that you think other people would enjoy or perhaps they've had an experience of and they could appreciate.
Indeed. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you.